we are going to attempt to use this Crafter Corners from the Dollar Tree resin kit. We're going to attempt it and see how that turns out. We're going to be making tarts. I want to make cherry tarts. And I want to use these little tart containers. All right, guys, you'll have to overlook the way I look. My old subbies will know I'm growing out a bad couple of haircuts. Okay, so what we're doing is we are filling our little tart tins with our clay, and we're using the air dry clay from Crayola. You can pick this up at Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Michael's. You can order it online. This is perfect to give you that realistic flaky crust, and all I do is pinch off enough so I have a good sized ball, bigger than a marble, smaller than a golf ball. And I work it in my hands a little bit to just get it pliable. And then I start working it in my hands to get it flattened a little bit. And then I'm gonna put it in my tin and we're gonna work it out to the edges. So I place it in the tin and I'm just gonna work it and pinch it and pull it out to the edges. It's the same process as if you were making a real pie. So I'm gonna give you 2 tips here for working with this clay. One, you should probably keep baby wipes or a little cup of water so you can dip your fingers in it, because that helps to get rid of any imperfections that you might notice that you don't like fingerprints or whatever, or if it starts to dry a little bit on you while you're working, that helps to add the moisture back in and make it a little bit more pliable. As you can see, I've worked it out to the edges, and I want it to go over the edges slightly. And you also don't want this to get too thin. So you want to have enough clay in there that as it dries, because as it dries, it shrinks. So if you don't have enough to help keep it full as it expands, then you're going to have some cracking issues. You can fix that. You can make, you can kind of make I forget what the technical name of it is, but you're just going to make like a patch with some wet clay. You can literally just wet, and you can attach raw clay to hardened clay the same way by making a spit or a spat, or I forget what the technical name is. But basically it's just some extra wet clay is what you can use. When I get it to this point, I like to use a tool, especially for these smaller ones, because it's harder for my finger to fit in there. And I just go around so I can make sure I work it into those indentations. So I'll go all the way around, give it a nice little push, not too hard, but enough that I can actually see that I'm, going around. And then I'm once again going to use my fingers, which are my favorite tool. And I'm just going to work it back over to kind of smooth the rough edges out a bit, if that makes sense. So I've gone all the way around. And then, of course, I can then kind of go around and pinch it back down. And it helps to use the edge as a cutting tool. It's cutting it, I'm using the tart itself to cut the excess off by applying pressure. And then I just go back around and take off any of the extra. I usually do this over my bag here of clay. I also keep it in a bag once I've opened the container, and then I put it back into the container because it just helps to keep it moist and it lasts for I've never had it go bad on me or go hard unless air got to it. So now I have it like this. The edges are done to my liking. You also want to go back and really make sure you don't have any extra clay like on the surface itself, because once it's dry, then it's harder to get off. You have to kind of scratch it off. And then I'm just going to go back in with my thumb and gently go around so it kind of softens the edges a bit, instead of making it look like I actually used a tool to, go around. And there I have it. It's simple. And I'm going to do that for all 6 of my tarts. And then once it's dry, we're going to use our coffee grunge to give it that realistic color of being baked. So to make coffee grunge, you're going to need a jar, hot water, and vanilla, some instant ground coffee, some cinnamon, and then other spices of your choosing that you enjoy the scent of. Cloves, nutmeg, anything like that that gives you the scent and the color. You're going to heat up some water in your Keurig to get it nice and hot. And then after you get a nice hot jar of water, and you can also boil water or put it in the microwave. It's just easier in the Keurig. But once you get that, you're going to start putting all of these ingredients in that hot water. I always start with the coffee first, but there's no real order to this at all. You can customize this however you want. The more coffee you use, of course, the darker and the more grainier the texture is going to be. Of course, the more of all the spices that you put into this mixture will give you a different look and texture. It's not going to be drastic. It's just going to be darker or grainier or grungier, depending on, you know, what your liking is. So play with it, tweak it however you'd like. I am actually out of cinnamon in as I'm making this right now. So I have a stash of cinnamon in the basement in my craft room. So I will run down there while we're crafting, and I will finish putting cinnamon in then. Since I've never worked with resin before, and I'm an impatient person, I wanted to go ahead and at least try to get the color right. So I've mixed up my resin. I've added food coloring, just run-of-the-mill Dollar Tree food coloring. You know, this. I've added this. Mixed it up. You're supposed to mix for like 3 to 5 minutes. I doubt that I mixed that long, and that's to get rid of the bubbles, but I'm okay with bubbles. It's actually bubbling. And I like the specks of undissolved food coloring that you see in there, because that's going to give me like that realistic jelly texture or appearance, because realistic jams and jellies and preserves that you would put in a tart have some seeds and have that kind of thing going on. So now we wait. Now I poured it into wet clay, so I probably should have dried it first, but I wanted to see what it was going to do. I wanted to see if it was possible, because I have Googled everything in regards to making faux foods with resin. And I do see a few artists that are making faux foods with resin, but nothing like this. Either they're keeping it a well-kept secret and they don't want to share tricks of the trade, or I don't know, but I have not been successful in Googling, YouTubing, nothing. None of my research is showing me what I need. So I'm going to wait and see what happens. So I'm happy to say that the resin worked beautifully on top of the clay before the clay had dried. So this is how it turned out. And look at that. That is nice and shiny. It has, I'll see if I can get a little bit closer for you. It does have, as you can see, let me get my little thing, these little like darker spots. Those are bubbles. And inside of the bubbles, the food coloring kind of collected. But like I was saying, I like that. And I'm happy that that did that, because it gives that the realistic look of it being seedy, and real preserves are a little bit seedy. So I like that look. Now I'm going to finish filling the rest of my tarts, which I did leave to dry overnight. Now, this one, I'm going to have to use my coffee grunge mixture, which, by the way, I need to add cinnamon to, because I ran out of cinnamon upstairs. So I'm going to add some cinnamon to it, shake it again. But then I'm going to go over and embellish the crust a little bit to give it the cooked look, or the baked look. And then I'm thinking definitely with these, I want to put at least a dollop of whipped cream maybe in the middle, because I don't want to, I thought about doing it around the sides, but I don't want to hide all the work I did to make the crust. So I think I'm just going to do a little bit of a dollop on the top. And what I'd like to do is add like a little cherry, but a realistic cherry size-wise. I don't necessarily think that people would do that. So I might have to kind of Google some inspiration or Pinterest some inspiration on what a real tart embellishment looks like and then go from there. So meanwhile, now that we know that this works, and I'm so excited. I love working with resin. And you know what? The first resin I've ever been brave enough to try, because it really did intimidate me. A lot of projects intimidate me. But I wouldn't be a true crafter and artist if I didn't try and experiment. That's part of the fun of crafting and coming up with things. And some of the most infamous and influential artists of all time would have been quoted as saying, and have made it very, very well known that a lot of their best creations came from just winging it, came from or out of mistakes, quote unquote, which in the art world, there are no mistakes. Bob Ross said, there are no mistakes. Julia Child's in her cooking. There are no mistakes. You just try and you roll with things as they go, and you can salvage anything. There's nothing that's a mistake or whatever, except this hair. Look at this. So before I fill with resin, I got a little bit of my coffee grunge mix. I'm going to use my Lazy Susan. I'm going to go around and I'm going to give my crust that cooked look. And I'm going to start with the one that I just finished. All the crust done, and I think I'm going to leave it at just one coat. I'm not going to do more than one. And I think I'm going to do this. I'm not going to make them all the same. Now, I wish I would have had some actual dried lemons to use, but I don't. You can use actual food and preserve it in the process of making it art. So it doesn't go bad. I've said this before in my faux food tutorials. I use real nuts. I use real dehydrated foods. I use a lot of natural elements as much as I can to give it that very realistic look and feel. And it's not going to mold. It's not going to go bad. If you do it the right way and seal it the right way, it will live forever. It will be petrified into existence forever. So what I'm going to do next is start working on the fillings for these pies. I'm going to go one by one, and I'm going to need to mix color. I think for the apple, I definitely want it to be very like syrupy, like cinnamony, much like the coffee grunge. So what I think I'm going to do is mix in some of the coffee grunge into my resin, and that should give me that look for this particular part. So let's get started on these. So working with the resin, you're doing equal parts resin and hardener. And you can use a weight, a digital weight scale, to measure it, or you can use measuring cups or some kind of measuring tool. I'm going to eyeball it. Because of the way I kind of got the look, the feel for it yesterday, so I'm just going to go for it. Then you have to mix. You will mix for about at minimum of 3 minutes. You want to mix this. So while I'm mixing, just remember, I'm mixing for 3 minutes. So now that I've got it mixed, and you'll kind of know that it's mixed all the way because you'll notice that, you know, there's definitely a slight color difference and texture difference between the resin and the hardener. And you'll notice when it's combined, because you'll just notice. I can't even describe how, but you'll just, trust me, you'll know. The texture will be consistent throughout, and you'll start to notice the little bubbling. There will be just slight bubbling. I don't know if that's the way it is with all resins, but this one from the Crafter's Corner definitely has a little bit of bubbling action. I don't mind it. I think it's normal. And so what I do now is mix in my color. Okay, so here's how they are looking after being completely dry. And I think they look really well. I'm really happy with them. This that I wanted to be lemon is obviously not going to be lemon. So I thought, how can I top this off other than just, you know, a little bit of faux whipped cream? I thought if I shave some crayons to make it look like orange peel, that this could be a orange tart or a nectarine tart or something like that. So we'll see how that looks. And then for the apple one, I took the apple out and I tried to, after the fact, hurry and make little bits of apples and stuff them in there. It didn't turn out the best. So hindsight, I'm going to pre-make all the elements for it, like pre-make the apple bits and let them dry overnight so they have those hard corner shapes and really look like apple bits. And then I will add them to the syrup. I'll put them in the tart and then pour the syrup over. That'll give a more realistic look. But to salvage this, I'm going to embellish quite a bit with some faux whipped cream and then some dried apple bits on top. So these are actual real bits of dried apples. So I'll just put that on top. This is just going to get some whipped cream. This blueberry one is going to get whipped cream and then a little blueberry. And then my, I'm going to call this like a pecan or a pecan. It kind of looks like, I don't know. It looks kind of funny. It looks like something I would actually eat because it looks like caramel and oats and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to doctor this up with some whipped cream, cinnamon, and nuts. And then the pumpkin one, I'm going to do whipped cream and a little bit of, and a little teeny mini pumpkin on top. And then so I'm going to get the camera up so that you can see and we can start. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the faux lemon one that did not turn out as lemon. We're gonna go ahead and get that one out of the way because it is driving me nuts that I failed in that. I'm just using caulking that you can get from the Dollar Tree as my icing. And all you have to do is cut the tip off with scissors. You don't have to, and this acts as a nice little piping tool. You don't have to put it in a piping bag with a tip or professional tip or anything. You can use the action of your hand to get the look that you want since you're just doing something small. I use this for my smaller projects. And I'm gonna test it on a lid or something that I'm gonna throw away first. And I'm just going to go up and down as I squeeze and see how it kind of gives me a whipped cream. So that's what I'm gonna do. And you can do straight lines if you wanted. So now that I've gotten the air bubble out, and you wanna be careful to make sure you do that so you get air bubbles out. I'm literally just going to put some right in there. And see how completed. I love how they turned out. The blueberry is definitely my favorite. So I hope that you enjoyed this little craft. Join me again next Wednesday when we do another craft. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be yet, but it will be something fun. And I hope that you subscribe, like, and share so that we continue to grow our little YouTube family. And thank you to all of you that have been here from day one. I love you all so much. So until next time, bye.